What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 24 overall fantasy rankings heading into the 2024 season. So I've already gone through all my positional rankings: running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends. Now we're combining them all together for a top 24. As always, I want to know your thoughts. Which players would you take higher or lower? Let me know down below. But let's just dive right into it. This is going to be more based on tiering these players together, combining the positions. I already broke down each of these players individually in the previous videos, so it's more about, how I view them in the top 24 compared to talking super specifically about every guy. But my tier one's just going to be one player. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey. I feel like this year he's probably going to be the consensus 101. As long as he's healthy, he's just going to give you a high-end running back one season. There's really no way he stays healthy and does not deliver you really strong fantasy production. And I just think with the current running back landscape, there's not a ton of early dudes we're super confident in. Over the last few years, we've had some of the top running backs start to age and kind of fall out of that elite RB1 territory, but there haven't been a ton of super young running backs that have kind of filled their place. There are still some young studs, that are definitely going to be in here in the top 24. But I think with just the current running back position, there's not a ton of depth. I think if you can get a locked-in high-end RB1 at the 101, you should probably do that. So Christian McCaffrey is going to be my tier one player. Now shifting into tier two, a combo of some wide receivers and running backs. I think the person you would take here could kind of depend on your league, what the ADP is looking like. If you could get two really strong wide receivers, 2-3 turn area, maybe you take a running back early on. If the running back's going to fall, maybe you take a wide receiver. So this tier is going to be CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. Lamb and Hill last year were the two top fantasy wide receivers, so it makes sense why they're up here once again, both in very similar situations. And then even though Jamar Chase was disappointing last year for fantasy, I'm expecting a major bounce back now that Joe Burrow's healthy. If your star quarterback is hurt to start off the season and then gets hurt towards the end of the year, it's going to be tough to deliver strong fantasy production. As long as Burrow's out there playing well, I think Jamar Chase is going to be a beast. And then with Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson here, I think both these guys have a ton of upside at the running back position. I would not be shocked if after this season, one of these dudes was the top pick heading into 2025. I think they have that 24 plus point per game ceiling. They're young, 3-down workhorse backs, and they're also both getting quarterback upgrades with Aaron Rodgers here healthy heading into 2024, and then Bijan Robinson getting Kirk Cousins there with the Falcons. Now pivoting into tier three, very small tier. It's just going to be two wide receivers. I feel like this is a nice breakup between some of the elite wide receivers and then a nice wedge between the running backs. It's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson. I think these guys are really strong picks in the mid-first round of fantasy drafts. Amon-Ra is coming off a 20.7 point per game season, pretty much walking into the exact same offense. I'm expecting another big season out of him. And then for Justin Jefferson, I think the loss of Kirk Cousins definitely hurts, but I still think even without top quarterback play or, strong quarterback play, I still believe he can give you 20 plus points per game, but I just don't know if he has the ceiling of the guys in the tier ahead of him, right? You're playing with Burrow, you're playing with Dak. For Tyreek Hill, it's just such a great fit with Tua and McDaniel that I think, he could pretty much produce with anyone. For Justin Jefferson here, it's either going to be Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy playing his rookie season. So I don't know if that peak ceiling is going to be there, but in terms of talent-wise, Justin Jefferson's a monster. He's going to produce no matter who's out there. It's just what the ultimate upside is going to be. Now looking at tier four, this is going to be back end round one, start of round two. We're going to go Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, and JT. So within this tier, you're probably expecting 17 to 19 points per game. You'd feel decent about that, but you're still kind of hoping that these guys can give you a 20 plus point per game boom season. Starting off with Jahmyr Gibbs here, I do expect him to improve on his workload heading into year two. We know he'll have the strong receiving production. He's going to be efficient, and he's going to have the touchdown upside on this offense. The only thing that's kind of holding him back from those top three running backs is going to be the overall workload, because all three of the dudes ahead of him, CMC, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, they can all give you the receiving, the efficiency, the touchdown upside, but they're also just going to give you that massive workload, which I don't think is something that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have, but still definitely a strong pick, back end of the first round. Then we're going to go with Puka Nacua, coming off one of the best rookie wide receiver seasons ever, 17.6 PPR points per game. There's no reason why he can't take a leap heading into year two. He didn't even hit in the touchdown department last season. I think it was 6 touchdowns in 17 games. So he could, improve, also add in the touchdown area. I think Puka's a great option here this season. And then after Puka, we're going with Garrett Wilson. I'm just expecting him to jump into that wide receiver 1 territory. He's kind of been a wide receiver 3, but the quarterback play has just been awful. You're going from Zach Wilson now to Aaron Rodgers. It is an insane upgrade. Garrett Wilson's proven he's plenty talented. I think this is where he belongs. And then another wide receiver here in A.J. Brown. He's just gone out, giving you back-to-back wide receiver 1 seasons. I don't think he's necessarily hit his peak. He's kind of settled into like that 17 to 18 point per game area. But if he can combine the volume he saw last year with some of the efficiency he's had in previous seasons, I do think he has that 20 plus point per game upside. But I just don't know if it's quite as attainable as the wide receivers ranked ahead of him. And then the final guy in this tier, Jonathan Taylor. We've seen him flash a pretty high ceiling season at the running back position. In 2021, he averaged 22 points per game. But looking back on that season, like I think after that, he was locked in as the top pick the next year, or he was pretty consensus as the 101. I think that's probably like pretty close to the max he could actually give you in a season. Like he rushed for over 1,800 yards. He scored 20 total touchdowns. Also had solid receiving usage, 36 receptions for 400 yards. In this Anthony Richardson-led offense, I think he's going to be super efficient. I think he's going to have a lot of volume on the ground. But I do think there are going to be question marks about his receiving ceiling. And then also the touchdowns, because Richardson's a big quarterback. He's super athletic. He could definitely vulture on the goal line. And then also not sure that they're going to be a super pass-heavy team. Plus, you already have solid weapons there with Pittman, A.D. Mitchell, Josh Downs. So I still think JT is going to be great. If he stays healthy, I think he's going to put together a nice season. But I don't know if I'm expecting like that 22 point per game season out of him. I feel like that was pretty close to the max he's going to deliver. Now, shifting into tier 5, this is kind of where these rankings, I don't want to say fall apart, but in general, I do not like the second round. I think it's pretty gross. I can't remember a year where the second round has felt so similar to the third round, especially at the wide receiver position. There's really no one that stands out here, in my opinion. We have a mix of wide receivers and running backs in this tier, and with these wide receivers, it feels like all of them have the opportunity to be like 16 point per game guys, but I think all of them have some reason why we'd be concerned about their ceilings. We're starting with Marvin Harrison Jr. here, and being ranked this high as a rookie seems crazy. Like, I'm acknowledging it. I'm ranking him this high, and it seems wild. But in recent seasons, we've seen guys like Puka, Jefferson, Jamar Chase all deliver 17-plus point per game seasons. What I think those guys have in common is that they were stepping into solid situations. So Puka had Stafford at quarterback, Jefferson had Kirk Cousins, Jamar Chase had Joe Burrow. We're getting Marvin Harrison Jr. paired with Kyler Murray. I like that pairing. He's a great prospect. This isn't like a Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave situation where they're getting paired with a terrible quarterback. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a good spot. I would not be shocked if he's giving you, a 17-plus point per game season like we've seen out of some of those other top rookies. Then we're going to go with Devon Achane, and I just think Achane has a ton of upside. He's not going to have the usage or size that you're typically, expecting with your early round fantasy pick, but I think he's just such a unique player in such a unique situation here with the Dolphins where he doesn't need that huge workload to produce, and I think he could give you like a 20-plus point per game season on around a 50% opportunity share, which sounds crazy, but I do think it's possible. He's just that efficient. He's that explosive. He's going to have a ton of touchdown upside in this Dolphins offense, and I'm probably going to be higher than most when it comes to Devon Achane. After Achane, we're going with Drake London here, and even though London has not delivered a big fantasy season yet, he's getting a massive quarterback upgrade, and I think that's where it's coming. Obviously, like I talked about, it doesn't feel great in this tier because you have a wide receiver who's been like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 in his first 2 seasons, and you're expecting now to take him like early round 2, but that's kind of just what we're getting this year. It's not going to be a pretty spot to pick. After Drake London, we're going with Saquon Barkley. I expect Saquon to be efficient behind this Eagles offensive line, but I do have some concerns when it comes to his receiving usage and touchdown upside. This has not been a team that passes a ton to the running backs. They were middle of the pack last year, and that was also kind of a big jump from the year before. And then the touchdown upside. Jalen Hurts is just an absolute monster on the goal line. 28 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. If he's not getting those touchdowns, that upside's definitely going to be capped, even if he's super efficient and effective on the ground. After Saquon, we're going to go with Ayuk and Debo. Last year, they were the wide receiver 15 and 13 in points per game, respectively. I think both have more upside than what they showed last year. This 49ers weapons group just stayed super healthy. Ayuk, Debo, CMC, Kittle, I think they missed 5 games combined with those 4. That's probably not something that's going to happen again. So if one of those dudes goes down, I think the upside of, an Ayuk or a Debo or both could, potentially go up here. We're going to continue at the wide receiver position, and Chris Olave is going to be up next. He's been impressive through 2 seasons, but I do think his upside is somewhat questionable just based on his quarterback play. I don't know if he's going to have the production out of Derek Carr to really break him into like a mid-tier wide receiver 1 option, which is the upside you would kind of like if you're drafting him here, but it's kind of a similar problem with a lot of these wide receivers. Then we have Devontae Adams in a unique spot because he was peppered with targets last season, but he still only finished as a wide receiver 2 in points per game. I think he was wide receiver 15. So maybe we're starting to see the fall off, but if he's going to see close to the same volume he saw last year, I feel like it's going to be tough for him to not kind of live up to this ADP. So you're taking a risk because he is up there in age, coming off a season where he kind of fell off a little bit, but kind of risk-reward situation there with Devontae Adams. They're going to go back to the running back position with Kyren Williams, and the Rams did go out. They added competition with Blake Corum, but I still expect Kyren Williams to lead this backfield. I think Blake Corum's definitely going to be more of like an elite handcuff option, where I think they're both going to be solid picks in fantasy drafts. I'm even considering moving Kyren up higher than this, to be honest, because he could still handle a massive workload. He's coming off a season where he finished as the running back 2 overall in points per game. That's super impressive. So Kyren right now is going to be more of a back-end round 2 pick for me, but I wouldn't be shocked if I end up moving him up throughout the offseason. And then my final 2 players here, 2 more wide receivers. We're going to go with Nico Collins, and this Texans wide receiver room admittedly is tough to break down. You have 3 really quality players here with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. I just think Collins has the nice blend here where you have Tank Dell coming off the season-ending injury. You have Stephon Diggs, who's coming in from a different team. Nico Collins has that chemistry with CJ Stroud. He's also not coming off that season-ending injury and had a 17-plus point per game season. So even though there's going to be more competition, out of those 3, Nico Collins is going to be the guy I favor here. And then the final wide receiver and the final player in the top 24, it's going to be DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore, even though this is a pretty congested wide receiver room, I think he is their clear-cut wide receiver 1 this season. He's coming off his first wide receiver 1 fantasy season. He gets a passing quarterback upgrade with Caleb Williams, and I think Caleb's going to produce. I think this Bears offense is going to look pretty good from day 1. Caleb's so talented. They have the weapons around him. DJ Moore's coming off a great season. I'm still in on him as like a 2-3 turn guy this year. And that's going to wrap it up for my top 24 fantasy football rankings. Let me know your thoughts down below. I think in general, there's going to be a lot of variance in that second round. There are going to be people that I didn't even mention that you guys would probably take there. Maybe you want to get into the quarterback position, the tight end position. Like I said earlier on, there's just such a limited difference between round 2 and round 3. It's kind of crazy, but that's just what we're getting this year. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.